Reflections are a popular subject for illustrating, and it's probably because of how impressive they look when pulled off well. Here's an overview of how to achieve believable and impressive reflections in your own work. The quickest and simplest way to add a reflection is to duplicate the reflecting object, flip it vertically, and then line it up best you can. Then, there are small ways you can make it look more convincing. Reflections tend to have a sort of smudged look, which you can replicate by adding a slight vertical motion blur. The reflection of an object in clean water will also be slightly darker than the object itself, so you can do a subtle brightness lowering adjustment on the reflection layer. While this copy-paste method does work in many cases, there will be times where it just doesn't look right, like for this creature. That's because a reflection isn't usually going to look like a perfect duplicate. In this picture, notice how the reflection of this flower shows the underneath of the petals that you can't see on the flower itself. Think of reflections as, instead of a vertical flip of a flat image, a vertical flip in 3D space. If you flip this 3D object vertically near the horizon line, the view is straight on enough that the object and its reflection look near identical. But further away from the horizon, the reflection now looks much more different from its source. This means that when you are creating the reflections of objects that are at a straight on near the horizon view, duplicating and flipping will work just fine. But the further something is from the horizon, or you could think of it as the things you are looking more down on, you're better off drawing or painting the reflection separately. Figuring out how to draw the more underneath view of the subject you are attempting to reflect can be pretty challenging if you just wing it, so I really recommend using a perspective grid to line everything up properly. You can use a full grid spanning the entire scene, or if you're only needing a reflection for one object or small area, you can also put perspective lines just around and below that area. Back to this picture, you can see the vertical perspective lines by connecting the petal tips to their reflections. If nothing else, at least draw some quick vertical perspective lines, because these will tell you how to line up the reflection to the object. To make a complete perspective grid, you can then draw your lines going in this direction, and then lines going in this direction. If you're having trouble figuring out the direction these lines should go, try drawing what you feel a box should look like in the scene, and then use the lines of the box as a starting point. A basic understanding of perspective is essential for many more aspects of art than just drawing architecture, so I really recommend learning and getting the hang of it. When sketching out reflections, start not at the edge of the water, but directly underneath the object. Ignore any ground it's sitting on, and focus on flipping one object at a time. For example, in this clump of rocks, think of each rock as its own object with a separate reflection. If you're having a difficult time with your sketch, you can try flipping your canvas upside down. You're probably already drawing an unusual angle of your subject, and doing that exclusively upside down can be pretty difficult. I like to go back and forth between working upside down and right side up to get fresh eyes on what I'm drawing. Another strategy is to simplify with boxes, since boxes are easy to flip, and then you can use those boxes as a guideline for drawing the real thing. All of these examples so far have been for still water, when the reflection is mirror-like. When water is disturbed, the reflection will be distorted. This distortion can be wavy, like it is for the reflection of this swan. You will also see reflections being broken up. You can imagine that one side of a ripple is facing towards the object, and the other side is facing away. Viewed further at a distance, the disturbance of the water will cause the reflection to stretch. You can see that the rough surface of the water in this image makes these windows longer, and this is also why during a sunset over the ocean, the light on the water stretches so much. A body of water doesn't need to be deep to have clear visible reflections. A shallow puddle can mirror an object as clearly as a lake can. When you look into shallow water from an above angle though, the reflections can fade, and instead what is at the bottom of the water becomes more visible. Even some wet ground surfaces can reflect, although this reflection will generally be fuzzy and lack contrast, not much more than a silhouette. Like I've mentioned, a reflection's color in clear water will pretty much be a slightly darker version of the colors on the source, but this won't apply for water that's dirty or otherwise colored in some way. The color of the water and the color of the source object will mix. The resulting reflection will appear faded, likely lighter than the original object instead of darker. Thanks for watching, and also thank you for 100,000 subscribers. Here's a couple more videos of mine you might like, and I have lots planned for 2026.